Hi everyone, my name is Petras Butenas, I'm the CEO at Simplanova, and I'd like to welcome all of you to Simplanova's webinar on how to upgrade custom objects to extensions. I'm again very happy to see such high numbers for registering for our webinar. It shows just how relevant this topic is still today. We have again Thomas as our presenter for this webinar. He'll be guiding the whole content again, and we'll be spending around 15 minutes again on questions at the very end of the webinar. Now, some ground rules for today. Please type all your questions in the question or the chat window. We'll try to address as many as we can, so don't wait for the very end. Post them during the webinar. We'll have around 15 minutes for them. If we don't have enough time to address all the questions like the last time, please contact us with the questions again via sales@simplanova.com, and we will also try to address as many as we can via our website. We'll post a blog post for the Q&A from this webinar. Now, this webinar is also being recorded, and it will be available on YouTube latest on Monday next week. Everyone who's here will be notified with a link to this recording. Now, a few words about Simplanova. We have been around for the last 6 years in Dynamics Partner Channel. We're working with Dynamics partners exclusively, and we've managed to help more than 100 of the Dynamics partners by now, and we've done more than 250 projects, most of them being upgrades, simply because we have a full package of automation tools to upgrade the old solution to the new version. Now, for a while, we've started focusing on extensions, and hence the webinar today, and helping moving ISV solutions and the VAR customers onto extensions, and also helping moving add-ons to app source. We've done quite a few by now, and we try to stay ahead so we could provide the best insights for the Dynamics Partners channel. So for anyone interested in workshops or scoping your projects together, please write to sales@simplanova.com, and we'll connect together. So without any further delay, I present Thomas, who will be guiding you through the webinar. Hi, Thomas.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar, in which I'm going to talk about how to upgrade custom objects to extensions. In the last webinar, we have reviewed how to prepare for conversion process, and today we're going to look into the next step, the conversion process. If you watched my previous webinar, you should have a better understanding how everything works for now, because we have touched a little bit of topics which we will be talking today. And our main goal for today is to learn mostly about the conversion process and also the packaging capabilities. I will review the conversion process, the tools that will be used, and the comments. We will try to convert some objects and refactor the code afterwards. After that, I will show you how we can package and publish the extension. And I will discuss how the package can be distributed. Like Petra said, on the end of this webinar, we'll be answering your questions. So we'll have approximately 10 or 15 minutes for that. So let's discuss the conversion process. So at first, what you need to do in order to do the conversion correctly, you need to do the preparation tasks. Then you do the conversion, and after that, you move the converted objects to Visual Studio Code environment, and lastly, you would have to refactor your code. So for the preparations, includes setting up your environment and linking it to Visual Studio Code. For the environment, you will need Dynamics NAV 2018 or later, and Visual Studio Code installed. I already have everything set up, so we'll just quickly go over it and show you what I have. So I have my Dynamics NAV database. Actually, I will be using a couple of them. I have one clean database and one that's will have my modifications. So then I have a couple of folders here prepared. One is to store the CL objects, and the other one is to store AL converted objects. I also have my comments, which we will be using for the conversion processes. And so first of all, once everything is ready, you have to prepare your conversion commands. The conversion commands are the following three. You will need to enter them all in the command line with the following sequence. So first of all, you will have to go to your RTC folder path. Later on, you will have to enter that command to export it to new syntax. And lastly, you will have to use the txt to AL to export it to AL. But first of all, let's do some modifications with these comments and according to your system needs. So after the modifications were made, this should be the final result. You would see that the first comment is just your RTC path. The second one is the path for your files that will be exported to, the database name, the server name, and also the filter for which the objects will be exported. And for the last comment, we have the source path and the target path. I'm using the folder paths without actually specifying the names for the files, so it will just convert the whole folder and move it to another folder. For those who have not tried this yet, probably you are seeing a couple of new things here. So one of them is export new syntax command in the second line, and the next one is txt to AL execution. So what is the export to new syntax, and why do we need that? Export application object, what it does actually, it exports application objects to a txt file with the new syntax. If you will look at the syntax changes, you would notice that there are minor differences, like date format here. In the previous version, we had 12:00:00 p.m. Now it's just supporting one format. Also, we have different changes like lower cases instead of upper cases. What else we have? We have Boolean values from node to false, and the page references have been changed. But what is up with the new syntax? Well, the conversion process with Microsoft provided tools is still developing, so the only way we can convert our objects is by using the two-step conversion. So first we need to convert to the new syntax, and only then we will be able to convert it to AL. This means that the tool we are using is only accepting the specific syntax in order to be able to convert it. So when we are exporting to new syntax, we have to provide the database name, the server name, and other properties like filters. In my case, I'm using, most of the time I'm using just one filter, which is locked by, but there are many other filters which you can filter on. If you look into this table, there are most of the fields that are in the object table of Dynamics NAV that you can filter on. So you can just pick one filter that fits for you and just use that in the command. And in order to convert the objects, we need to use the Microsoft tool. Probably most of you have heard about it. It's txt to AL converter. This tool will take in the provided new syntax files, and it will convert it to AL. Keep in mind that this tool only exists from 2018 version and also on the later versions, and you will not find it in the older versions. To run this tool, you have to navigate to the Rolltiller client folder via your CMD and run it with the following parameters. So as you can see, the parameters are source, target, rename, type, and extension start ID. So the source is the path that is required. The target, the source will take in the new syntax objects and will convert them and move it to the target folder. Rename, what it does, it basically moves the objects to a separate files. If, for example, we exported the objects to new syntax and it has created only one file, so rename will create many other files. It will just split those objects to different files. And extension start ID, it provides a starting numeric ID of the extension objects. And it will be incremented by 1 for each extension object. So let's try to do that in practice. And I'm going to be using 2 separate databases, like I said. One will be clean, and one is with custom objects. And first of all, before running all the commands, we have to make sure that we run our command prompt as an administrator. So let's open our command line as administrator. Okay, I'm just gonna close. Okay, so we have our command line here, and I will open the commands which I'm going to be using. So first of all, for the conversion to happen, we have to locate our RTC folder. This is going to be this has to be in the correct version, which is our database executable file. After this is done, we can then filter on specific objects. So let's open our database and see what kind of objects do we want to filter on. So what I want to have all the custom object ranges. So I will just select all of them. And to show you that, I will just lock all of them. So this is going to be my filter. I have all the objects and I have locked them all by my username. So now I'm going to pick the filter, which is with my database name, with my server name, and with my username as a locked by option. So let's take that command and let's see what it will bring us. So now I have provided the path to export it to CL folder, and now it has created one file only. So if we would open this file, we can see that it has changed the syntax a little bit. And the next step here right now is to actually convert this file to AL. So let's do that. The next command for us is to convert it. So we're going to provide the source path and also the target path. And we're going to specify that we want to rename the objects because we don't want to have it in the same file. So let's run this command. The output shows us that it is writing something that is converting the objects. If it wouldn't be successful, it wouldn't show any message. And it probably would mean that you didn't have the correct permissions, probably didn't run the command line as an administrator, or that you didn't upload your license to the server. So make sure you do that, and only then you will be able to convert those objects. So once we convert it, we have all the objects right here in our folder. And what we do in the next step, we actually open Visual Studio Code, and then we will create a new project. So let's create a new project. Let's click F1 and type in AL Go. So it asks us for a name for the project. Okay, so now it should ask for the cloud or local server. I'm going to choose local server here. And since I have my laundry zone prepared already, I'm just gonna copy the values from there and enter it into my laundry zone. And once I know that these values are correct, I can go to the command palette again and type in AL download symbols. The symbols are needed to have the references for all the objects in the database. So we can call them and manage all of them. So once this is done, we know that we linked our database to the Visual Studio Code. The symbols will take an effect in a moment, so it will not show this error anymore. You can actually check what kind of objects it is seeing. So for now, it's just showing users, but that's just because we have to wait a little bit. So let's move all the objects to the Visual Studio Code project. We can just drag and drop them, and that's how you convert the objects. And the next step for that is actually to refactor. As you can see, there are many issues here. So we can see all of them. So first of all, it shows that the ID is not correct. So we need to specify the correct ID range in the app.json. So let's do that. And let's get on with the refactoring. But there are a few things to know about the refactoring. Okay. So what you have to know is that the most common refactoring issues are .NET, file management, naming, inaccessible CL functions and objects, and also many suites. So in order to do something about that, as I mentioned in the previous webinar, to work with .NET, we can do a couple of things. For on-premise, the .NET is available, but you will have to create .NET objects as well. That's not a problem. We can do that easily. I have discussed a little bit about that in the previous webinar questions. But for the cloud, it is a problem. It is not available, and you can do a couple of things about that, but not too much. In many basic scenarios, you will be able to use AL native types that maps to .NET types like lists, dictionaries, strings, or XML. And if this is your case, you can just switch your .NET variables to a native type in AL. But for more advanced scenarios where actually a .NET type you're using is not supported on AL, the recommended way is to use Azure Functions or .NET wrappers. Azure Functions are basically a library where you can host your .NET code and then call it from AL objects with HTTP requests. Keep in mind that you will need to buy an Azure subscription in order to use that. And you will not be able to use a graphical user interface because you can only work with some output that you can provide for that HTTP request. And .NET wrappers is something that is in the CL. If you would go to your development environment and search for .NET, for example, string, you can see that there are many .NET Codeunits, and what they do is actually they implement the logic behind the .NET types. So you can use those and call them from AL objects, and sometimes this may help you. One more thing is file APIs. For file APIs, there are two things you have to know. So first of all, the code that relied on permanent files will need to be rewritten to use another kind of permanent storage, and code that relied on temporary files will need to be rewritten to rely only on in-stream and out-stream types. But like I mentioned in the previous webinar, this is only for the cloud. For the on-premise, you can do most of the things, so that shouldn't be a problem. For this example right here, creates an XML document and it saves it to the server file, and then it downloads it to the client directory with a different name. And since it is a permanent file, we want to save it somewhere. And for that case, we're going to be using a table with the field of type blob, but that's not a recommended way to do that. You should probably use some external storage integrated with Azure or some blob storage, for example. So since the code is using two .NET variables for AL, we're going to have to refactor this code using AL classes. So we had XML document and XML node classes for .NET, and the output for that refactoring would be the following. So we would create a table for storing blobs, so in this case files, and the file management case would be just using AL native classes. So here we would read from XML document, and we would create an outstream for a temp blob with that XML, and then we would store that blob in the table. But like I said, it's not a recommended way. One more thing is menu suites. So since menu suites do not exist in AL language, and customer may require to have the functionality to navigate to specific pages, you will have to find a way to do that. But that's not a problem, since AL actually provides a way how we can do that to make pages searchable. So the way is to actually use additional property that was added in AL language, and this property is called usage category. If we specify the usage category, it will allow us to search for that page in the specific location. For example, if here we specify the administration usage category, we will know that this page will be under the administration type, under the administration category, and we will be able to search for that page in the search bar as well. And two other properties are added with if usage category set. One of them is application area, and other one is access by permission. These properties control if a page or report is visible to the user and can be opened if it does appear in the search. Okay, so let's get to the refactoring a little bit, so we can see what we have and what we can do. So in a couple of our cases, we have, okay, let's delete the hello world example because we do not need it. Like I said, for the on-premise, we can create .NET objects here, but since we're focusing now for the cloud, we're not going to be using that, and we're going to think of a way we can do. So, like I said, for example, in this case, here we can see that a member with the name status is already defined. So it means that the status name is used somewhere else. Like I mentioned, the names must be different in AL language, while it hasn't been a must in the CL. So let's change the name and compile the object. Let's go to another case. One more thing are the system tables. Some system tables are not possible to be, are not accessible from the extensions. So what we could do here is we could use all object record, or let's say all object with caption maybe. This one. So we could change that and can check the types it has. Object. Okay, object type. We can check the type we want. For example, we want page. So it was object type, so let's change it here as well. Okay. And also the ID, so it's now an object ID. So we have changed the object system table to all object. So this is used for the extensions, while the other one was not supported. Okay, and in many cases you will see that some records may be missing, but that's not actually a problem. That's probably because the symbols are missing. And what we can do about that, we can actually go to that specific object and try to compile it. This should create a symbol reference for us, and we should be able to download that symbol again. So I have saved that object again, and let's download the symbols again and see if this error has been fixed. Well, it should be working if everything is correct. It's supposed to be. All right, but that's not our case today, so let's see about the other things. We have as well a .NET variables here, and what we could do about that, we can see that this is a Codeunit which is calling some .NET functionality, and you can see that it is actually providing values to a value and a value that it starts with. So, and it's returning if it starts with for example, some value. So what we can do, we can actually search all the files for this and see if it's been used somewhere. And if it's used, what we could do now we could actually, because I know already there is a .NET wrapper. We could use that .NET wrapper as an alternative for that code unit. So this code unit should actually help us. So we would provide the values that we want. And also for that code unit, we have to specify that we are setting that we're creating an instance of that, because .NET works like that. So now this should be working, refactored with the wrapper. And one more thing we have here is a request for the HTTP. So what we could do, we could just use AL classes in order to call this. So I have already an object with the AL classes here. So let me just remove that one and add a new one. So let's see how it should look like in the actual example. So as we can see now, we are using HTTP content and HTTP client of the AL itself. So with this, we know that there are a lot of possibilities what we can do with the AL language and refactor all the code that we want. This is the most cases that you will encounter, and if you don't know how you can refactor something, you can try to search in the forums of Mibuza or NAV developers, Business Central developers. One more thing I wanted to talk about today is how you can distribute your extension. After we have refactored our solution, it is time to package it and to move it to customer server. And to package the extension, depending on where you are deploying your application, you will need to add specific contents to the package. Furthermore, for the cloud deployments, the cloud deployment will differ from the on-premise deployment. So you have to think of these two things before you are packaging your contents. So first of all, what is package? Package is a file which will be deployed to the customer server. It is basically a zipped extensions file with all the required contents. You can create a package in Visual Studio Code by opening a comment palette and specifying AL package this should create a package if there are no errors here. And inside of a package, we have manifest files, which are configuration files for the app. We have source files, which are our objects with the source code. We have symbols. Symbols are the reference objects, like I mentioned in the previous webinar, the objects for the application itself. So this will be needed if another application will want to modify your application's object. So it will require these application symbols. These three are included in all packages. But what about two more additional things? Additional things are permission files and translation files. These files are only necessary for the cloud. So what are they and why do we need that? Permission set files are required in order to be able to use the extension objects for a specific user. To create permission set file, you have to export it from your database first. And you will have to export each permission set to a separate XML file. And then just add the exported permission set files to the Visual Studio Code project that contains your extensions. So we can export that permission set file by specifying the command that is in this slide, which is export NAV app permission set. And if you do not include the permission set with your extension, only the user with the super permission set will be able to use that extension. So that's a problem if you didn't include your permission set. And to publish your extension for the cloud, it also has to have translation files. And translations files are now stored in XLF format. This is needed because the multi-language properties such as caption ML or tooltip ML are now being deprecated, and the functionality of having multiple languages is now changed by using XLF files. And to add the translation to the extension, you must first enable the generation of XLF files. And then you can build the extension and then publish it. So to show you that, we can actually, we already have some generated by our txt2al tool, but in the real world, we would want to add the feature for that. So let's specify the features, and to see what kind of features we can add, we can click Control Space for the IntelliSense, and it shows only one parameter, so it's translation file. So let's do that, and it means that every time we're trying to package our extension, it will automatically generate the translation files. So let's try to remove this one to want to have to compile it for now. All right, and also we don't need this one anymore. Okay, this is one more factoring issue, since it doesn't know where to put the double quotes. And once we see that everything is compiling, we can actually try to package it, and to package it, we can just go for AL package. And as you can see, the new folder now has been created with the translations, and it has created some specific object. And what is that object? So when the XLF file is generated, you will see that the following structure like that. Except in this example, I'm having already translated it. And in the generated file, you will see that it has all the let's say all the names of the fields and all the labels will have a source, but no target. So we have to specify the target language here, and also we have to specify the target value for our, let's say, caption that we want to change. So this is the way you would translate your files, because it is not using captions with multi-languages anymore. You will have to remove that from your code if you're moving to the cloud. So in order to distribute your solution, you can do it in a couple of ways, but the main thing here is that for the cloud and for the on-premise versions, this is different. For the cloud, you can install the extension by doing the following. First of all, you open the web browser, you connect to your production Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central instance and select whatever company you would like. Then you click on Setup in the Extensions menu, and then select Extensions. From the Extensions menu bar, you can choose to manage and then select Upload Extension. Once this is done, you will be asked to browse for the folder where you have your extension .app file, and you can upload it and install it to the server. The upload and install operations are asynchronous, and you have to check the deployment status periodically until the installation has ended. So to check that, you can just go on Manage again and click on the deployment status, and it will show you it will show you the status, and it will tell you if it was successful or not. And if it wasn't successful, it will give you the error message. For example, if there will be no permission set, it will give you the error that this app doesn't have a permission set. But for the on-premise, you can install the package to the customer server with the PowerShell Comments. To do that, you have to run a couple of commands. So first of all, you have to have your app file created already. So like I said, we have package.file, and to actually show you how it looks like when we have packaged it, you can open our solution. You can see that this is our package now. If we would open our package, we can see all the contents that we want to have here. So we have the source code of all the objects. So we can open any kind of object we want, and we can check that. So this is our application object. And we also have the symbols and the manifest files. So this is the file that we will be providing for the customers. And for the on-premise environment, like I said, you must go with the publishing process with the PowerShell. So to use those commands, you first of all have to import the module, which is Dynamics NAV Apps Management DLL file, and then you can publish your NAV app where you provide your server instance for the database and the path for the package. And since it's on-premise version, you have to skip verification, and skip verification parameter actually tells you to skip the errors if there is a missing signature for that extension. So this is the only way we could publish our extension to that server. And after it has been published, we can install it with the following command: install NAV app. And then again, we have to specify the server instance and the name of your extension, and specify the tenant on which you want to install it. And one more thing you have to consider: if you want our extensions code to not be available for the customer, to be hidden, to create a runtime package. But and what is a runtime package? Well, runtime packages allows you to protect your intellectual property, because it does not contain AL code, but only contains the final artifacts that are used by the server at a runtime. So the first step in order to use the runtime packages is to have your extension developed already and published to the on-premise instance. Once this is done, we can actually connect that server and download the runtime package with a PowerShell command, and it will download it with the runtime objects only. So the command is specified in this slide, and you will need to provide the name and the version at least to download the package. And it will download it with a different format. Like I said, it will be app again, but it will contain, the contents will be different. And before running this module as well, you have to import Dynamics NAV apps management. So the limitation of this is that runtime packages only contain that the runtime packages are only for the on-premise installations, and therefore they cannot be submitted to the cloud or app source. And moreover, the debugging experience is very limited since no source code is available. And for the cloud you have, if you want to hide your code as well, you can do one of the following. You can actually do only one thing. You can go to your app.json and specify one property, which is show my code. By default, it is false, and you can specify if the customer will be able to download your extension code. And how this looks like actually. So if we would now publish our extension, which we can do by clicking F1 and then AL publish without debugging, this will publish our extension to the server. Or we can as well use the PowerShell comments, which I talked about. But if we have a direct connection to the server, we can use this environment as well. So once the package is published to the server, we can run the extensions management page. And in this page, we can see that the code is stored in the database somewhere, and we can actually download the code if the show my code property is specified to true. And right here you can see that there's a button on the top to download the source, and for these examples we don't have any other difference. So if I would change it to true and try to publish my extension again, let's see for the message. All right, it has been published. And now, and again, let's try to run the extension management page. Okay, so this is the example now. So we can download the source code now, and it will just show us the app contents. So this is the way how you can actually provide the package files for the customers. And this is it. If you would want to have, this is the time for the questions, I guess. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them.